Will Ciolino and Nate Luebbe. Nate, photographer, Sony Alpha ambassador, and we have Will from Anthology. And today we're talking about is innovation in photography dead? I am genuinely questioning that myself. So I'm hoping you guys point me in the right direction, shed some light on the topic, but I don't want to take up any of your time. I know you guys got a lot of information for us today. I will say for all our viewers, we're holding off questions till the end. That doesn't mean you have to wait until the end to get them in. So if you have a question throughout the presentation, definitely drop it into the Q&A if you're joining us here on Zoom. And if you're watching on Facebook or live stream, you can drop your question or comment into the comment section, but we will be addressing all questions at the end. So if you don't hear your question asked, hang on to the end, we'll get it for you. So Nate, Will, welcome guys to the virtual event space. How's it going?
Good, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Pleasure having you guys on. I'll get out of here. I'm gonna listen along with the rest of the viewers. Cool. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you to the event organizers and the staff here at B&H Event Space for helping us put this virtual event together. I know they're constantly busy making fantastic content, so it's great to, it's greatly appreciated that they'd invite us on to host this event for you all. So this event is sponsored by Anthology, the premier social photography platform for both professional and up-and-coming artists. Anthology is building an all-in-one photography platform that arms you with the tools to efficiently organize, share, and profit from your photos. Join today to start building your digital portfolio presence and take advantage of our newly released patronage feature that is the first in class for photographer-dedicated platforms. Sign up at anthology-us.com today. Yeah, want to start this off and thank you, Nate, for being here and help me out with this. But a little bit about my background. My name is Will Ciolino. I'm CEO of Anthology. Been a hobbyist photographer for about 10 years now. Love going out taking nature photo shoots in my backyard, going to state parks, wildlife preserves, things like that. Love automotives. I've been an engineer for several years, designer, maker, 3D printing enthusiast, and things of that nature. So I'm a maker at heart. I love making art and facilitating crafts. So that's a little bit about me.
Cool. Yeah, my name is Nate Luebbe. I go by Nate in the wild around the internet, and my journey is, I guess, sort of, I grew up outdoors. I'm an Eagle Scout, and I just grew up in the mountains of Colorado. I got a degree in environmental science and worked as a field scientist for a while. And just in my journeys into these beautiful wilderness areas, I decided that I should start taking a camera with me. I mean, I guess I'm a victim of everybody in my generation where cameras were integrated into our phones. We were really didn't have a choice. You just always had a camera with you. And then I eventually realized that it was kind of fun to take photos, and I got hooked that way. And I'm very fortunate now to be able to do this full time. I'm a member of the Sony Alpha Imaging Collective, and I get to just basically go hiking and camping and take photos for a living. And I guess while that doesn't sound super innovative, I do try to push myself and push the boundaries a little bit, and hopefully we can get into that a little bit today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I kind of want to go about this, would have more of a conversation. I'm going to be interviewing Nate rather on a couple different topics. We got how we work from my perspective as a hobbyist, his perspective as a professional, innovation in the space. Where's the future of photography really going in terms of creating photos and distributing them, and then also a discussion on social media, because obviously we've created over the course of the last 10, 20 years or so a massive social media environment, and that's had a huge impact on photography, and photography has had an impact on social media as well. So they go hand in hand. So I'd like to get some thoughts and questions out there for you today. So with that said, what I like to start off with is kind of just defining what exactly is a professional photographer, right? I think that is kind of like a line in the sand debate discussion that's been in the industry around for a while. So I wanted to get your opinion. Why, what is it that makes you a professional, and why do you think that is?
That's one of those defining lines that is sort of blurry, I guess. And I'm not sure it's even super important to distinguish all the time. For me, I consider a professional somebody who makes the majority of their income from photography. So I think if that's a substantial chunk of your revenue, even if you still have a small job on the side, I think you can call yourself a professional photographer. But I guess I do always like to clarify that I don't want people to think that that means you're only good if you're a professional, because some of the most exceptional photographers I've ever seen, I have several friends on Facebook who still work full-time jobs. They never sell any photos for fun, and their work is beyond inspiring to me. And then similarly, I think we're all familiar with people who maybe shoot full time and sell their work, and we kind of scratch our heads and wonder why. So for me, it's just the defining line, I guess, is if you make a majority of your income from photography, but don't feel discouraged if you're not selling your work. You can still be an exceptional photographer without needing it to be a revenue stream necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think for my own definition, how I define a professional is somebody, there's got to be a level of added dedication. I don't know if the word is risk involved or just dedication to the creating the content itself.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's one thing for me to go out to like a park and take a picture of animals that I see in there, but it's a whole nother ball game to go out and face extreme weather conditions and camp outdoors for days on end to wait for that perfect moment to capture an animal, right? So I think that leads to in a level of authenticity that then your customers and people appreciate more, and that's what drives those profit motives.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's like that dedication and professionalism, rather than just being a professional, taking the care to do things right, spend the time necessary to like get the best possible photo rather than just snapshots on the fly.
Exactly. So I guess when did you know that it was the right time for you to actually, I'm sure you had a career before this. When did you take the leap and start to become a photographer full time?
Yeah, for me, it was kind of fun. I got an offer that was basically like a make it or break it sort of thing. So I was doing photography for fun. And then I started selling a photo here and there. And it was just kind of like fun work on the side, or like a little bit of side income. And it got to the point where, on like Saturday, Sunday, I would make a similar amount of money that I did Monday through Friday. And I started thinking about leaving my job, because I was like, man, if my free time is earning me as much revenue as my actual job, then what's the point in having this actual job? And then you can see the screenshot on the screen. This is called Dirt Road Travels. I got approached by a man named Craig Foldis, who has since grown to be a really good friend of mine. And he basically said he was starting this digital travel guide. He wanted me to be the photographer for it, the exclusive photographer, but it involved a 3-month road trip, visiting all these different cities, building out these guides, taking photos all over the entire West Coast of the United States. And, I couldn't take 3 months of vacation time from my job. So that was pretty much it. It was like, this is the one. I have 3 months of work lined up. So I put in my notice at my job and we hit the road. And then Craig and I lived out of a roof tent on his Jeep for 3 months, building out this travel guide.
That's great. And I guess that definitely led to other types of content too, right? Not just photos. I imagine you probably drove blog traffic and things like that.
Yeah, it was really cool. The project started as just these digital travel guides, like authentic kind of like snapshots of people and restaurants and like fun hiking trails. And it grew into this really awesome, like multimedia, I don't want to say empire, but we would work with DMOs, destination marketing organizations. So like Visit Albuquerque was one of our clients, for example. And yeah, they hired us to come down. I would take a bunch of photos, but we'd go down with a video team and we'd produce some video content and some written pieces. And then they could license those images for advertisements, et cetera. And so it ended up being this really cool thing where, we would like fly to Sacramento and we'd spend a week there creating content. And then 6 months later, I'd hop on a plane and I'd see one of my photos full page in like the United In-Flight magazine advertising the city of Sacramento. And it became this really cool like globe of content creation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know along the way, at some point you became a Sony Alpha ambassador. So I guess for the audience that doesn't know what that is, I guess, can you explain that a little bit, how you got involved and where you are now?
Yeah, that's probably the number one question I get asked is from other photographers who want to be in the collective, and they ask me how they can get in. And I think the story is similar to how I got in. It's just like being engaged. I loved the photos they were posting on Instagram. So I'd click like and I would comment on them. And then, there's like real human beings behind those accounts. So they would see my name and they would look at my work, and a couple times they shared my photos. And then every time they did that, I'd send them a little message like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. P.S. You know where to find me. And, eventually one thing led to another and they invited me to join the team. And I kind of liken it to like being drafted to the Yankees out of middle school. I definitely do not think I was qualified at the time. I mean, I still kind of don't. I still have imposter syndrome about it, but it's very humbling to be on a team with so many exceptional creatives.
Yeah, that's great. And then I believe you're telling me that it started out with a small team, right? And now it's grown.
Yeah, it started out with a team, I think of just like 6 to 8 maybe. And I was not part of that. That was like when I was watching all this content be created and drooling over it. And then I think they expanded the team to either 25 or 50. And that was when I joined, was part of that expansion. And now I think we're just shy of 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. So talking a little bit more about, I guess, revenue streams and money as a professional, right?
Yep.
I think from the hobby's perspective, and sometimes even beginner artists feel this way, that they feel either a lack of confidence or they don't feel like their personal abilities and sales are, up there, up to par to actually sell work and sell content. So I guess how well have you done selling your any physical prints, right, or what other forms of type of revenue streams you get from marketplace type of environments?
Yeah. Print sales are not a huge segment for me personally. They are for some people, but I think it's one of the like hardest sectors to really establish yourself. There's tons of fine art photographers that make an amazing amount of money, but the competition in that space is super high because the barrier to entry is so low, right? Like anybody who owns a laptop can purchase a print and then try to sell it. And so you're competing with everybody, which is not to say that you shouldn't, but for me, my favorite kind of work is working with tourism boards and destination marketing organizations, and then like commercial clients as well. And that's something that just kind of builds up over time. And honestly, I did use Instagram as a way to like refine my skills, and I'm very grateful for that app for helping me kind of fine tune my own work. I don't think you should get like caught up in the likes necessarily, but it is kind of a fun barometer for audience. Well, it used to be back before they had this terrible algorithm that just like chooses to show or not show your photos. But back when it was chronological, and there's other places like Twitter or your Facebook or whatever where you can post these, but you can get a sense of like what's a good photo and what isn't by the audience reaction. And it's a fun way to like share your work and kind of figure out if you're doing something correctly. And once you feel like you have sort of a refined style and you're not just pushing the shutter and hoping that a good photo comes out, I started emailing companies and just offering, like, hey, I'm going to go climb the tallest mountain in Colorado this weekend. It would look pretty cool if I was wearing your backpack. And, it sort of builds from there. And once you start getting a few clients, then you end up having, it makes it a little bit easier. Getting the first one is always the hardest. But once you land that first client and you can email people from there and you can say, hey, Nike bought one of my photos, they're a past client, then it's smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you touched on licensing a little bit there. And that was something that when we met was really stuck out to me about you. I think you're one of the few professionals that I've met over the last few years doing what I'm doing with Anthology. But you're one of the ones that kind of are trendsetters in this. You're willing to go out and really pitch yourself to companies, to sponsors and platforms to actually sponsor your trips and create licensed content. How did you come to do that? I guess was it scary at first to do that, I guess?
Yeah, and it's still scary, because like say that you want to work with Patagonia, which is like, it's maybe the single biggest outdoor brand in terms of like prestige and how many people want to work with it. It is really scary to present yourself, but like they have Jimmy Chin and Chris Burkard on their roster and Renan Ozturk. And so like trying to send them an email and be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't work with Jimmy Chin, maybe you should hire me. That's terrifying. Like, who am I to say that, So I still get really intimidated by it, but it just comes down to like having a cool idea and trying to set yourself apart, because I think actually a lot of people are pitching these companies, but maybe not doing it well. Like a lot of people are just sending emails that are like, hey, I have a camera and, a bunch of followers or whatever, hire me. And I think coming out with a cool, innovative idea, I guess, to use the subject of this conversation, is what sets you apart. So like, for example, in 2019, I went to Alaska and my girlfriend and I trekked across the least visited national park in the United States. It's like almost the size of Massachusetts and gets fewer than 1,000 visitors a year. There's no roads into or out of or inside the park. So we had to get dropped off by a bush plane. And basically the guy was like, we're going to see you in a week. Hope you survive. Bye. So a pitch like that carries a lot more weight. And so when I reached out to like Eddie Bauer, for example, it's way more interesting than I'm going hiking in Yosemite, right? Like who isn't going hiking in Yosemite? So trying to innovate unique ideas helps set yourself apart. And then I also try to set myself apart by like having those skills, like being dropped off in grizzly country above the Arctic Circle with no backup and no cell phone service for an entire week. That kind of thing is beyond the scope of like your average commercial photographer. And that's one of the ways that kind of I try to differentiate myself when pitching.
Awesome. And then speaking of the innovation and things like that, I know you were part of a big project back in last year called Light Side Up. I believe it just was nominated for a video award as well. Do you want to talk about that trip a little?
Yeah. We're very honored. We were nominated for Best Short Documentary by the American Documentary Film Festival, which was really cool. That was another idea, I guess, where a lot of people take photos of the Northern Lights. And I wanted to try and take a drone photo of them. I thought it'd be really cool, like get above the ground. And then one thing led to another, and I started talking to some friends. We ended up putting a Sony A7S III attached to a weather balloon, and we took 4K video of it from the stratosphere. We got up to 122,000 feet. And to our knowledge, we're one of the first teams to get cinema quality footage from that elevation of the Northern Lights, which was really fun. I don't know if you want to like play the trailer for the film or maybe show an example of it.
Yeah, sure. I got it here. We could,
yeah.
Let me see. Set this up.
But yeah, that's kind of an example, I guess, of like getting innovative and getting a little bit unique with a concept rather than just taking photos and videos.
For sure. I don't know if the sound will come on through here, but
Looks like no. Not hearing any audio on it, but these are just some examples. You can see it. You know, we showed the background of us constructing and designing this payload, from scratch. We had some fabricators helping us, some engineers. And we flew all the way up to Fairbanks, Alaska last September and finally got it off the ground. And it's a little bit jumpy on the playback on my screen, but at the very end, there's a little bit of a sample shot from the flight. If anyone's curious to watch the whole thing, though, it's on YouTube. Just search Light Side Up. The whole film is there for free.
Yeah, I don't think the audio is coming in there correctly, but it is a fantastic video. I think that one of the really cool things about that is, like you said, I don't know if there is another photographer team that has done something like that, which is really cool, and just shows your level of dedication as a pro, which is what I was talking about before. It kind of sets you apart from a large portion of the others. So I guess moving on, we could start talking about a different topic here. I know around this time of year, a lot of the manufacturers are coming out with new camera equipment and new tech. I know Sony, like I think you mentioned, has released the Alpha 1 earlier this year. Canon and Nikon also announced new camera bodies that are coming out. Is there anything that you're, being a Sony ambassador, I know you probably have a preference, but are you excited about these other camera equipment as well?
Yeah, I'm really excited about all the innovations. Actually, it's really fun watching the digital technology progress. When I bought my first digital camera, I was one of the first people to get into the mirrorless scene. It was actually an Olympus camera, like the first OMD EM5 that they came out with, and mirrorless was like kind of frowned on. And it's really fun watching the whole industry. I joined the Sony team when they were still on the Alpha, I think the original Alpha 7, and so it's been fun watching the whole industry push towards mirrorless developments. And now we have these super high resolution sensors, super fast sensors. The low light capabilities are unbelievable. And there's still a lot of, I think, innovation to go. I think everyone kind of sees what the next step is, and we're just kind of waiting for the technology to catch up. I'm personally looking forward to global shutter. becoming a thing. Right now, cameras have a rolling shutter, which for moving objects, I mean, it's getting really, really good, but for fast moving objects, I shot a photo of an owl diving last year, and he's super warped because I was dragging my lens to keep up with him, and global shutter will solve that. And I think that's kind of the next step. I'm really excited for that.
Really cool. One of the things I think it was Canon that announced it with the EOS R3 camera body that they just announced, was the eye tracking in the viewfinder. It's got autofocus capabilities when you actually look at a subject through the viewfinder. And I heard from people who are reviewing it, I think mostly in the pro space, there's some debate about whether that's a good feature or not. From an engineer standpoint, I think that's awesome. That you could just look at something in a viewfinder and it would focus on it.
Oh, it's like tracking your eye movement.
It's tracking your eye movement and focusing on that. So obviously you're looking around in a viewfinder and you're always framing your image and looking at the boundaries. So there's some questions and concerns obviously about, is it going to focus all over the place and things like this, but I'm sure they're figuring something out.
Yeah, I love the concept. I do have some hesitations for that same reason, because like when I'm composing an image, I don't just stare at the subject. You look around to make sure there's nothing weird in the background or the foreground. But depending on how much machine learning and AI they integrate with it, it could be really cool. And that could also be, I mean, that's like the next step beyond like touch screen focusing, right? Is now it actually just tracks your eye movements. It could be cool, or it could be really obnoxious depending on how it's integrated.
For sure. That leads to a great topic. I think, since starting Anthology a couple of months ago, last year, actually, we've had a bunch of discussions from a host of different people, from photographers and artists to just creators in general, and also from people in the business community. And I think that there seems to be a disconnect between those two fields. I've noticed a lot more from like the business perspective. They think that the photography industry the well has run dry, so to speak, and that there's not really any more room for innovation in this space in terms of, you name it, distribution, social media. They liken things to, there's already giant companies out there, which is very true, right? There's some big spaces and players out there already. But I think from just from being here and talking with the actual people in the industry, it seems really clear if you spend 5 minutes with people that there's a ton of room for growth. There's a ton of room for platforms and for businesses, even smaller companies, to come in and fix some of the issues that these players have not only created, but also facilitated along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the move we've been seeing over the last 5 to 10 years has been a move towards major conglomerates taking the power from artists, with things like Shutterstock and Getty offering pennies on the dollar for an image license. And we've seen innovation just in the last month or two in the space with the emergence of NFTs, which is, I think that's kind of the revolution, and where it's going is artist empowerment and taking the power back from these companies that are exploiting content creation for corporate revenue. And we're bringing the power back into the artists themselves and allowing like peer-to-peer support. NFTs are very polarizing, and you don't all have to love them, but the concept of allowing artists to like individually sign digital certificates of authenticity and sell them directly to fine art collectors without having to go through getting a gallery space and paying for physical prints is magnificent. And then this screenshot that Will just put up is an actual email of mine from Adobe stock, and this wasn't hard to find. I didn't have to like search through my entire email to find this. I have hundreds of these where an image license that probably should be $600, I make 30 cents on. That's just kind of the industry of stock photography. And I think there's going to be a pushback on that now that we're seeing things like NFTs, where people are able to sell individual photos for hundreds of dollars again, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, depending on who you are and the market you're able to access. And I think we're going to be moving away from stock photography, and right now it's continuing to get worse. There's, I get emails once a week from a company that wants me to sign up for a website that's $10 a month, all you can download. And that I'm going to make a penny per download from that. And no photographer is going to sell 500,000 licenses per year to be able to pay their bills. And so there's going to be pushback from that. And that's, in my opinion, the direction we're heading, is artists recapturing that value and the quality of our work will be one of those driving factors. You have to have some exclusivity, and you have to have a little bit of I don't want to say like respect for yourself, but the artists are going to have to like push back and not participate in those platforms in order to drive the value back.
Absolutely. And I think beyond the fact that it just seems demoralizing to get an email that says you get 24 cents for commission, I think one of our first discussions when I met you was that stood out to me was really that it kind of disincentivizes you to even promote your best content on some of those platforms. Like, why would you as an artist spend your time and energy actually, contributing your all to these platforms if you're not going to get anything in return?
Exactly. Yeah. I actually took a lot of my work. Well, I took all of my like portfolio work off of those websites. So the only things that I have on there are like the extras that I know I can never sell. And as a good example, I had one of my favorite photos ever on Getty Images. And somebody was going to license it for $4. And I thought, you know what, there's no possible way I should not be selling this on Getty Images. And I took it down. And a couple months later, they emailed me and they said, hey, we saw this photo on Getty Images. We can't find it anymore, but we drafted up a prototype of this book cover and we still really want it. Can we pay you several $1,000s for the book cover? And so we did the direct deal, and they'd like seen it on Getty, but because I took it down, I was able to make significantly more than I would have through Getty for something like that.
Wow, that's amazing. We talked about NFTs a little bit. You touched upon it. I know it's been exploding in recent news over the last few months with big YouTube platformers kind of promoting that and contributing to that push. I believe somebody sold a record $69 million pieces of art over at Christie's, I believe. So do you think the NFT market is all hype? Do you think it is here to stay? Do you think that there's room for innovation there as well?
I mean, it is hype, but like, what in art is not hype? Is the value of the Mona Lisa not driven by hype? Like, what is the literal value of some old canvas with old paint on it if it is not the hype around all of humanity collectively deciding that that's one of the greatest paintings of all time, right? So I think people use that word saying NFTs are hype as like a pejorative, and it's really not, because all art value is derived from the hype around it and the collectors thinking it's valuable. And NFTs are very much in that way. It's just a digital version of like a limited edition print. And I think it's really cool. Personally, I participate in the space, and I know that there's a lot of concerns around it, but I think that right now we're in like the very, very early stages of what will 100% be the future of digital art sales. Right now, it's just kind of like you buy a digital collectible, like a trading card sort of a thing. You're buying a one-of-a-kind JPEG, which doesn't make a lot of sense to people. But I do think in the future, we're going to see this integrated into things like image licensing, where you can upload a photo to your favorite social media platform, and instead of just going to the platform, it's instantly transformed into a non-fungible JPEG, so that if everyone on Instagram has had this experience where somebody will screenshot your photo and post it as their own, there will be ways to integrate it where that's not possible. And if somebody wants to repost it, they have to pay a small revenue fee to repurpose the NFT onto their platform. Every photo across the internet will be tied permanently to the creator of that file. That's the direction we're moving in. And there's a lot of like very valid concerns now, but I do want to remind people there was a lot of very valid concerns around cars and airplanes as well. Technology will progress. And I do definitely think that's the direction the industry is going.
Definitely. And I think that one of the things that I came across over the last couple of weeks when I was researching this was a standardized push called the Content Authenticity Initiative. I believe Adobe was part of that with Twitter and the New York Times. They were really focusing more on the news industry and the publication side of it, where they want to make sure that, like you said, images are original and not edited or doctored in any way. So that makes sense for that industry. But I think, like you said, it something of that sort, that kind of standard, that standardized practice there could definitely impact the photography industry as a whole, where it contributes to that sense of originalism, that protectiveness for the actual creators of the photographs, which is really important and something that has been missing since we started promoting things more on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I use a couple platforms now online that, they basically use machine learning to like scan, and they do an image search for the internet. And they tell me when they find one of my images being used without a license, which is really cool. But it's like very labor intensive for me to sift through, like somebody pinning it to their Pinterest board that's not illegal. That's totally fine. I love that. Versus like a company putting it in an advertisement. So I think in the future, rather than, things like that, we're going to see where every photo is tied to their original creator. And then, like you were saying, companies like Nat Geo not wanting to use forgeries or manipulated photography. There's going to be a way to trace that digital certificate of authenticity backwards as well.
For sure. And I know you talked about this where you have to manually kind of use platforms like that. That just adds to one of the issues that I came across as a hobbyist, really trying to get ahead from our industry and from our side of the industry, is that time management, that level
Yeah.
of distribution. Everything is scattered. People have their own websites, they have their own marketplace accounts, they have social media, they got, you name it, they have it. And then
Yeah.
to add that level of another form of management tool that you have to essentially control, it takes up a lot of time, tremendous amount of time. And I know you do, you have a YouTube channel as well, so you have other forms of content that you're creating. How much time are you actually spending on actually just editing and taking your photos?
So much less than I want to, for sure. I was actually just complaining about this last night to my girlfriend, and God bless her for putting up with me. But I feel like I spend probably 80% of my time on the computer managing clients, and then like uploading to different platforms, and like cultivating a social media presence is part of the job, but it's more of the job than I would like it to be, for sure. I would be thrilled if 80% of my time was outdoors hiking, shooting photos, and coming home and editing and creating the content. But managing the distribution is equally important, and it takes up way more time.
Yeah, definitely. And I've noticed that myself too. I think I don't use probably half the amount of tools that you do. And even so, I'm spending hours upon hours a day managing content for the different platforms, because they all have different standards. They have, they have their own requirements, and
Yep.
nothing's ever the same. And it takes up a lot of time. And then you're interacting with your audience and trying to build that. It's time consuming for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
And I think a lot of time that's what sets people apart from getting to that next stage of becoming an amateur photographer, amateur professional rather, and then that professional level, because they see how difficult it is to manage their time and in the beginner fields, and then they want, how am I going to do this in the long run? How can I sustain this?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's very daunting for beginners right now, especially like you get on all these platforms, you see people with hundreds of thousands of followers and these established careers, and it's so easy to compare yourself to them and feel like you'll never make it, and you have to just put in so much time trying to like establish this foundation audience, and it's exhausting and overwhelming, and I'm still victim to it as well.
Definitely. So let's talk about social media a little bit. I think
Sure.
that is, like I said, it has become intertwined with photography. Essentially, these platforms have been built around photos. A lot of their feature sets have been built around photos, creating lifestyles and creating, just massive influencers and people that want to be followed by sharing their livelihoods. So I guess, how do you think there's still room for growth in this industry and in social media? Can things get better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to take a little bit of a collective rebellion against the major players right now, but there's a lot that can be improved upon it. And I mean, I don't know a single photographer that actually enjoys using Instagram right now, for example, or Facebook, which I guess is kind of the same company. But there's other platforms that are doing things well, and then there's still a lot that's like missing from the industry. And I think the like main thing that people are really wanting to see is like a way to share your work without all this pressure of likes and like retweets and whatever, and then just like a nice flexible format for displaying the content. That's one of the biggest shortcomings on Instagram. I know photographers who only shoot holding their camera vertically now, because Instagram performs better when you post a 4:5 ratio vertical photo. And that is so sad to me. I fell into that trap myself, but it's like, it's devastating to see somebody's artistic choices dictated by the algorithm of how many likes they can get on social media. And so I think for me and for a lot of my friends, if I'm allowed to speak for them, one of the like main driving factors for what we want in a social media platform would be a flexible way to display, some photos are just better landscape orientation. And I'd like to be able to upload those and allow people to rotate their phone to look at them. And thankfully, like Twitter allows that, which is really, really cool. But it still is just kind of like a vertical feed. So I don't know. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a good designer. So I don't really have a good answer here. But for me, that's one of the things I would love to see.
Definitely. And I got something that I can share here.
Yeah.
This was a comment that was found from one of our audience members. The economic model of content creation to some extent has stopped being the agent of its own change. Now it just reacts to what Facebook and Google want. So
Yeah.
that actually kind of touches upon what you just said, where we have been creating a culture where we, as photographers, we're taking photos for the purpose of getting likes and follows, as opposed to taking photos for the art, right? And
Exactly.
I think I was having this discussion with my fiance the other day. Was we're looking in the market for wedding photographers at the time, and our main focus for some reason was, what is that going to look like on social media? What are those pictures going to look like online, right? As opposed to, wait a second, we have to take a step back and say, hey, we're building, like, this is our photo album. This is for us. Let's find something that we want to create. So it takes a moment to actually really unwind and take yourself a step back to
Totally.
realize how big of an impact on our lives these platforms have created.
Yeah. And I don't think that's going away. I mean, social media is here to stay. And if anything, we're moving more into it because digital connectivity is expanding, the technology is improving, as we're all moving online more. And I mean, hopefully we don't ever end up like fully plugging into the matrix and living fully digital lives. But realistically, that is the direction things are going, is more and more online. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting your wedding photos to look great on Instagram when you post them, but you're totally right. Like, you're going to print those in your house and you're going to have a photo album that you look through fondly, hopefully every year on your anniversary until you die. So
Right.
you're absolutely right. You want those to be like good actual photos, and then social media is secondary. And it's very fascinating to me how much our lives have been shaped in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of fascinated me about this topic was, let's take Instagram, for example. They were built as a photography platform, and their entire push was built by photographers, essentially people sharing photos, created the company that they've become now. And you talked about this before, how photographers are feeling a little bit taken advantage of on with some of these platforms, because they're changing their algorithms all the time. Their organic viewership is going down, which frustrates a lot of people, because not only is this your livelihood now, but it's also your means of connecting with the world. So I think let's talk about that a little bit. What's your experience with this, and where do you think we can go?
Yeah, I think the issue with that for me is that it just feels exploitative. So like Instagram's engagement is going down because they're manipulating the algorithm to maximize their own revenue. But 100% of that revenue comes from the creators putting content on their platform. Without, people like us uploading photos and videos and whatever, there's nobody there to look at it, of course, because there would be nothing to look at. And so for them to manipulate this algorithm and then start placing ads, and they introduce these like paid partnerships where they want to take a percentage of the revenue, but 0% of that trickles back to the people actually creating value on the app in the first place, is intensely frustrating. I uploaded a time lapse on Instagram last year that got several 100,000 views. It went a little bit viral, and I made not a single penny from it. Whereas I have a YouTube platform, and if that had happened, I would have made a couple $1,000s. It would have paid my rent and my bills for the month. And that is so demotivating. It like very much disincentivized me to continue posting on that platform. And I bet if you looked at my graph of how much time I spend on the app, I bet the day that happened, I use Instagram half as much since then. And I've started building out a YouTube platform and a Twitter platform and trying to build followings there, because those areas actually allow you to like monetize on that engagement a little bit better. Because realistically, like people are there to see my art and other people's art, and they're not there to see ads. And I think people would tolerate those ads more if the creators were getting some percentage of that revenue, because that's where the value is created.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, in terms of other platforms, right? There's other ones out there. There's 500px. There's a company called I believe they're more European based. But have you had any experience with those platforms or leveraged them at all?
I haven't really. I think I've like made a profile on them, and that's about as far as I got, because like we were talking about earlier, there's just too many to handle. I had to kind of pick my favorites and sort of focus on those. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's important to know too, because I think obviously with things like Facebook and Instagram, they're so big, but also because of all the money that they're spending on private data that they're selling to advertisers, I think that's critical for them to that's a problem that they created that now they got to fix, because you have companies like Apple coming in and fighting back against that, and they don't want sharing of private data anymore. People are becoming more aware of it. They're not comfortable with that. Whereas it was kind of like hidden in the background before. You knew about it, but you didn't really know.
Yep.
And it's all coming to a head in the last few years or so. And I think that there's a big swing of momentum in terms of how do we create a platform that actually has those benefits for content creators and for just general social media users, while also not contributing to those same problems that have come down the line.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is, like generating revenue not from user data is a great thing. And I don't think, I hear a lot of people complain about like scrolling Instagram and seeing the advertisements come up between photos, but I don't think anyone would have an issue with that really, or at least we could all swallow it a little bit easier if that revenue was split amongst the creators. If you're scrolling through like two of your favorite artists and there's an ad between them, that ad doesn't make me angry if I know that those artists are getting paid for it. But as it is right now, it's just like purely exploiting their creation for gain that they see none of. And then, like you were saying, also harvesting that user data. And then now there's all these like weird feature accounts that go further by exploiting that content and repurposing it for their own gain and not even crediting the original creator. And it's the whole system has kind of crumbled and is in need of a rebuild, or at least a good replacement.
Yeah, and I think that's a good opportunity to talk about what we're doing together. We've been working for the last almost a year now, I believe, on a project, and I was looking back on how we actually connected. I think I just sent you a survey questionnaire to fill out, and you were gracious enough to do so, and you were actually excited to really get into a project like this. But that is Anthology. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning, and it was really for me was around the focus of what I said earlier with time management and having all these different distribution channels, where it would just make sense to have a platform that kind of it does all that for you. You could take care of all those distribution needs in one environment, in one experience, as opposed to hopping around to different platforms, different websites, and managing different things. And then also, your customers are all on that same one platform, as opposed to going to different transactional revenues like that. You lose out on money, you lose out on profits, and it's just something that we wanted to contribute. So I guess first question before I introduce what Anthology is, what kind of made you excited to join this project?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I guess I was just kind of looking for anything that was trying to like do it correctly. It was trying to take the really awesome beneficial concept of social media and this like global connectivity and do it in a way that wasn't exploitative. It wasn't like that pure capitalistic money driver, and it's like really trying to actually benefit the artists themselves. And that was super appealing to me. And then also I think you emailed me in like late March of last year, which I had absolutely nothing on my schedule in March of last year, as I think many people did. So I was just looking for basically anything to take my mind off of the world. That was perfect timing.
Definitely. So I got show this graphic here. So this is a little bit about what we're doing. Kind of like what I said, we're creating a one all-in experience that you can do all of your distributive means all in one platform. So that's everything from showcasing your work in a new aesthetic manner that actually promotes your field and promotes your photos, as opposed to that the common 3 square grid that we've all come to know and love. And also you can can market yourself, you can sell your work, license your work, anything that you can do on other websites, you'll be able to do with Anthology. And this was kind of important for us to establish because, like you said, from coming from this field, this is something that we're both passionate about. We both love photography, and it just made sense for a company like this and a platform like this to be made by fellow artists. So that way we know firsthand what the issues are, and we can speak to them and we can actually facilitate a change in this industry for the better.
Yeah.
So I think with that, I think if we wanted to connect anything else, maybe we go to some question and answers.
Sure. You had a couple samples of what the portfolios look like on Anthology. Is that right?
Yes,
Do you want to show a couple?
Correct. You are correct. Let me.
Yeah, because they're kind of cool. It's I don't know. It's still kind of, I guess, in its infancy, but I think it looks really cool. And I've enjoyed uploading things. They show up in really awesome quality, and I don't have to like make compromises on the aspect ratio or the resolution or any of that, which is really cool.
Yeah, so we did launch our MVP, I guess, platform back in the end of January. We allowed you as artists to start building your digital portfolios, and like I said, we came up with a new elegant design and contrasted background that really kind of brings the viewer's attention to the photos themselves, and that was important for us. And one of the big inspirations for our mobile app was actually just real life photo albums, real portfolios. So if you're in the app and you click on somebody's portfolio, you could actually flip through the pages of each photo like you're actually simulating a book, which was important to us. And I think just that artist in me kind of wanted to nail hands down. But go to the next page here. So we have some examples here of what we've done. We just released a new feature last week. I think I talked about this a little bit in the beginning, where we've seen a massive push in user-to-user patronage over the last couple of years, and with platforms like Patreon, Twitch, even YouTube, I think has some of it now.
Yep.
Where you can actually donate to your favorite creators, and those platforms, what we've seen, typically focus a lot more on the videographer space or the podcasting space, and it was important to us to bring that same vision and that mission to the photography industry as well. So I believe we are the first photography platform to institute a feature set like that, which is really exciting and encouraging.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, should we take some questions here?
Yeah, we'll throw some questions in. That was awesome. I mean, I will say you guys went way beyond what I even expected, touched upon a lot of topics where I was like, I'm over here like cheering, like, yes. Okay, Nate, talk about, yes, this is exactly, I mean, this really, for I'm a photographer as well, so I can probably speak for everybody who's watching who is a photographer, from an amateur hobbyist to a professional. It resonates completely. Everything you're saying is like, oh my God, there are people out there who get it. So it's like,
yeah, we're trying.
You're trying, but look, you got to start somewhere. You got to do it.
Yep.
And I think everybody kind of shares the same feelings. I know, especially within regards to like Instagram, it's like you were talking about how it started like by photographers, for photographers, and all this. And I'm like, Will Ferrell and Elf is in my head, like, you sit on a throne of lies. So let's get it started with the questions. I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought it was awesome.
Cool, thanks, man.
Kier, who is joining us on Zoom, this is a question for Nate. Kier says, do you think the rising popularity in mobile photography and having cameras and editing software in your pocket make it harder for people who are learning photography to learn the actual technical side? So have we, I guess, I don't want to use the term dumb down because I don't think cell phones exactly dumb it down. They just make it easier. But do you think that takes away from people learning the actual, exposure triangle and all the compositional aspects and technical stuff that goes into actual professional photography?
No, I actually really like that diversity that it offers, because if you want to get into ISO and f-stop and focal lengths, you can do that still, even on your iPhone, which is crazy to think about, or your Android, if whatever. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, like on your phone, you can get into that, but you can also choose to purchase a DSLR interchangeable lens camera of some sort, and you can get into that. But if none of that interests you and you just like taking cool photos, you can keep your phone on auto. And I think it is I kind of like that choice. If you don't feel like getting super technical and nerdy, you can focus on beautiful compositions. And I follow a couple photographers who shoot iPhone only, and I wouldn't be able to tell you that it's iPhone only because they're so skilled at composition and lighting, and their framing techniques that they use are incredible and very inspirational. And so you can choose to forego all of the technical f-stop, aperture, ISO, whatever stuff, and just focus on composition, or you can put your phone down, use a real camera, and focus on everything. And I don't know. I think you still have the choice, which is really cool. And that actually makes it more approachable for everybody. And the more people are in the industry, the better everything is. Like my friend Dave Krugman says, a rising tide lifts all ships, you know?
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned Dave. There's a whole, out here in New York City, when Instagram first started, there's a whole wave of guys who are ambassadors now, men and women who started on iPhones that weren't into photography until, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dave, there's a couple of people who are now ambassadors, Sony Alpha ambassadors, who I remember them from primitive days of Instagram. They were just people who ran around with their phones taking pictures, and it
Yep.
progressed to DSLR. So it's right there. It's like the phone was a gateway to people who are now doing it professionally. And if for anybody who knows Dave, man, what hasn't Dave done now? He's doing it in all arenas. He's done it
Yep.
social media, professional photography, film production, everything. So
Yeah.
I do agree. It's such a great gateway. Now, Will, you were jumping in there?
Yeah, I was just saying that from the mobile photography standpoint, they're revolutionizing the entire industry, because I was just looking at we just got the Samsung S21, I believe, not too long ago, and my fiance was taking pictures of our cat, earlier this morning, and the software behind the even just the image editing, where it can blur backgrounds for you automatically, and some of these insane algorithms that they're putting in these cameras is ridiculous. And it's making it a lot more fun, I think, for people who are just starting to get into photography, and it's a really great gateway to some of the higher end models with camera bodies and camera lenses and things. The prices are always still up there for a lot of people to attain, so it's really cool to see that the mobile side of things are coming along.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're going to be interested in it, you're going to have two schools of thought. You're going to have people who are, they love the fact that a cell phone can take a more professional, shallow depth of field kind of look to an image, and they're going to be completely content with that. And then you have people who are like, wow, I never realized how cool photography is and what I can do with it. I want to take it to another level, because you still don't have that. There's still a huge disconnect between you can't take like a telephoto shot. Some of the stuff that you're taking pictures of, Nate, you just can't do on a cell phone. And it's like we were joking before we went live about how, whether the gear matters or not. And it's like, yeah, the gear matters once you hit a certain point.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, that was how I got into it. I was just taking cell phone photos on hikes, and I was perfectly content. And then, there was a day when I had an idea for a shot, which was like one of the first times it had happened that I'd like conceptualized a composition, and I was trying to do it and my phone wouldn't make it happen. And I was like, oh, this is why people buy real cameras. And that was it for me. Now I'm here.
Now, Nate, if you could rehash, a friend of the B&H virtual event spaces, Hayden Green. Hayden, I don't know if you missed it. We did talk about NFTs, but Hayden was asking Nate what your thoughts are on NFTs. I know you guys talked about it, but if you could just surmise it, so in one sentence or two, you like the NFTs and where it's going. Is there anything you would change about the whole NFT conversation?
Yeah, I guess, to summarize what I said, it's just, I think it is without a doubt the future of digital asset management and distribution, but the technology is in its infancy, and there are improvements that need to be made in it, but it is 100% where the industry is going. And I think getting in early is a smart move, and rebelling against it will be the same as refusing to adopt any new technology. It would be like opposing the internet in 1995. You're welcome to do it, but eventually you're going to be there.
I think that's a great analogy. Now, keeping with the NFTs, Hamad is asking how to find a safe NFT selling platform. What does the gas cost mean? And Nate, what's your obsession with bears?
first of all, bears are the coolest animal, not open for discussion. They're just like giant forest puppies, you know, they're like if golden retrievers weighed 800 pounds and lived in the woods. That's the coolest. If I could do that, I would do that. Also, I love sushi, and bears, you know, grizzlies and polar bears basically just eat sushi all the time. So I think we have a lot in common. What was the rest? Oh, safe NFT platform. I guess I haven't really ever heard of an unsafe NFT platform. I think like one of the draws from it is the security of it. Like that, you know, when you create a piece, an NFT on the blockchain, it is permanently mandatorily tied to you as a creator. It's absolutely impossible to hack and to forge an NFT. And so I think they're all safe. The only thing you have to worry about, I guess, is like financial security, where say that you sell a piece for $5,000, you don't want somebody to, you know, access your digital wallet, but that's the same as online banking. It's no different than, you know, having like a Wells Fargo account online. If you're able to handle that, you're able to handle financial management through NFTs, in my opinion. And then gas costs that's definitely the confusing part. And right now, the majority of NFTs are on Ethereum. And this is something that we could talk about for an hour in itself, but it's just a transaction cost because they're created through that blockchain. It's not just like uploading a JPEG, it gets manufactured on this infallible chain of computational transactions that will exist for eternity in this like digital ledger, basically. And so you're basically like think of the digital ledger like a physical ledger. You're paying the guy at the bank to write your name down, basically, is what that gas cost is. And you have to pay more if there's more people in line. And so the gas costs fluctuate depending on how popular that time of day is, what else is going on in the cryptocurrency market. It's all very complicated, but Made by Animus is a really great collective, a lot of amazing photographers in it, like Ovek Reyes, Dave Krugman again, Jose Silva, a lot of photographers in the NFT space, and we've put together a really cool like wealth of knowledge that can explain all of that. So I encourage anybody with questions to Google Made by Animus, and there's just a ton of educational resources out there.
I actually have seen that stuff pop up. A friend of mine, Illich Peters, has been doing a great job. I know he's friends with a bunch of the guys doing that. So for everyone else who's out there who's watching, listening, who's like, what? Don't worry. I'm right there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get something NFT related for the event space to catch everybody up. I'm gonna make it like a very easy 101 because I'm still like, wait, Nate, what? I'm there with I sense everyone's like, wait, hold on, we got to catch up. We're still in like the answering machine days.
Let's do it. Let me know. I'll come back for that, and we can chat.
Definitely, I might have to put together like a little panel, and we'll do it. NFTs for the boomer generation.
Perfect.
I'm so boomer. And I'm not ready to move there yet. So we got NFTs out of the way for now. We'll bring that back at a later date. Lorenzo, who's joined us from live stream, says, "Hey Nate, with regards to pitches to DMOs or outdoors companies, can you offer any insight on how we can grow from pitching for sponsorships, so getting gear, etc., versus pitching for partnerships with brands?"
Yeah, that is the hardest thing. And I know you're going to hate this answer, but you just have to say no. They will always just offer you free gear. And I mean, who wouldn't? If I was in their shoes and somebody wanted to do work and I didn't have to pay them, it would be like, all right, cool. I don't have to pay you money. You just like have to say no. And it's very scary and it like sucks when you're getting started, but that is so important. I've had it 100 times when a company has said, you know, like, oh, sure, we'll send you a backpack and you can keep it. And then I send them a photo of my closet with, I kid you not, 25 backpacks. And I say that like you sending me a backpack to keep is actually more of an obligation than not sending me a backpack. Like you have to pay me to keep this backpack. So if you want to work together, I need to pay money. You know, it's like if backpacks could pay rent, I would be set for the next 17 years with how many backpacks I have. So I need financial compensation. Don't say it like that. That's kind of a dick way to phrase it, but you get the idea. You just like, you have to say no and lead it in a way that lets them know. And as a good example, this just happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I was approached by a company doing a charitable giveaway and they said, hey, can we use one of your photos from Peru? Because we're giving away a trip to Peru. We'll credit you everywhere. And I said, that's great. You will credit me everywhere, but you will also pay $500. And they said, okay, fine. And then they paid me $500 and credited me. And it was just because I said I was not going to let them just give me credit or just give me free gear. It's really just that simple. You just have to say no, and you have to set your price, and you have to be firm on it. And that even goes for raising your prices. You know, when I got started, I would do projects that would take me 3 days and I would make $500. And like, you obviously cannot do that and pay the bills, but I just needed things on the resume. And it's really scary eventually when people say, hey, we can pay you $500, and you have to be like, this is going to take me a week. You have to pay $5,000. And it's terrifying. And I know that it's not always doable, because like I've been at that point where that $500 is the difference between eating food and not eating food. So like, I understand you can't always say no. But if you're able to, even if it's scary, just saying no and telling them what your actual price is and holding firm, it will get there eventually. Saying no more than doubled my revenue in a year by turning down those low paying projects and just being more firm with my prices.
Gotcha. I mean,
Sorry,
I think
that was
that's
a long rant.
no. I mean, that's great. I mean, it's always one of those conversations that comes up about exposure. Exposure is this huge thing, and everyone knows the tagline and the meme, "Can't pay my bills with exposure." And there's multiple sides to
Yeah.
the coin, where it's like, yeah, there's times when exposure could be a good thing, where you can, like, I've had personal examples where I've taken exposure and I've turned it into something. I said, look, I'm going to take this for exposure, but only because I know that I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with it. And other times where you take the exposure and it doesn't turn out to be anything, and then you start to question, like, man, am I that good? Am I the guy that's hurting the industry by taking stuff for exposure? So
Yeah, you always have to like weigh the pros and cons, because like exposure bucks are real if it's, real exposure. Like if they want to put one of my photos as like the cover photo for a CNN piece with my name on it, like I would love to get paid for that, but that like might be actual real exposure. But like a small company trying to do an Instagram giveaway with 5,000 followers, that's not enough exposure to like pay the bills. So yeah, you definitely have to
yeah,
find
I mean,
that middle ground.
and you're at a level, Nate, where it's like you've established a name, you've established a personal brand.
Yeah,
So, Nate from 5 years ago isn't going to be looking at some offers that Nate, now, or Nate now isn't going to be looking at some offers that Nate from 5 years ago might have looked at. You're in a different arena.
exactly. Yeah, and like one of my first paid gigs was for Sierra Designs, shooting a winter tent, and they paid me. It took me like 4 days to do the project, and I only made $1,000. But I'd like never really earned money with my camera, and so I got to go hiking and go camping and take some photos, and then the photos are like still on their website, and so that was a terrible trade for me in terms of the actual financial compensation, but it was a very fair trade in terms of like they were taking risk on a photographer that didn't have a portfolio or a client list. So they don't, they're going to pay less, because who am I? Why should they trust me to actually deliver good photos? And then I'm taking a pay hit because I just need that first thing on the resume. So like, yeah, like you were saying, you have to like kind of work your way into it. You can't just book your first gig and say, I need $100,000 for this. But as you like build those stepping stones, you have to be aware of where your career's at and keep pushing it upwards.
I mean, you have to drive your own value. No one's going to
Yes.
say you're worth this much.
No.
And I think it's always better to err on the side of you're too expensive, because a lot of people who don't have experience just asking, you're going to find that, when you price yourself up here, they might say no to that, but then counteroffer, and the counteroffer might be double what you were going to ask for if you tucked your tail between your legs and were like, my worth isn't that much. So shoot for the stars, let them say no or let them counteroffer, right?
Exactly. And I actually even do that sometimes when I send a pitch or we enter negotiations. I in my mind will know the amount that I'm willing to settle at, and then I will ask for like 30 to 40% more, expecting them to haggle me back down. And sometimes they just say yes, and you're like, yeah. But other times they negotiate you down to where you wanted to be.
Now, you guys were talking about something before. It's funny, Will, you mentioned the app IM, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't heard about that app in years. I remember when it came on the scene, and every photographer was like, this is the new Instagram. It's gonna take over. And yeah, I don't remember. I'm kind of like you, Nate. I have a 500px and an IM login, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But it leads us into that directional conversation of where things are going to go. And we had a question that just came in from Tin Nguyen. So asking, and if I butchered your name, please let me know. I don't like butchering names on here. Can you take multiple pictures and mimic into 3D vision? And this it opens up an interesting conversation here where we're talking about innovation, right? And there might be ideas out there that the idea is great, but we're just not there. It's kind of like when you came out with 6K, 6K video, but monitors can only see 4K. You have the
Yeah.
technology, but no one's able to access or unlock the technology or see it. So 3D pictures, is it out there from what you guys have seen? Do you think it's something that will get a foothold in the market?
From what I'm aware of, I haven't seen any platforms that do that specifically yet. There might be some out there. But I think that is a reality that's going to happen. I think that like image stacking and the way computer vision technology is going, it's just getting better and better every single year. So 5-6 years ago, maybe I'd say no. But I think the way we're heading now in terms of AR, VR, things of that nature,
Yeah.
it's hard to deny any type of technological innovation now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it like sort of exists now. You'll see cameras with like the two lenses offset a little bit to give us more of a 3D depth of field. And then I've also seen people shoot in high burst. I'm sorry to keep name dropping, but Connor Surdy is an incredible example of this. He shoots on high burst and he holds his camera and he kind of like moves a little bit as he shoots it. And then he plays it as a video. And so you like see this perspective move. And even though it's just kind of a video, that like change in the perspective looks three-dimensional. It's really, really cool. So I think eventually we're all going to like be able to project holograms out of our watch like James Bond. So, depending on like the time frame you're talking about, yes, we'll definitely get there in the next year or two. Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, this was a great conversation, guys. So I do want to thank you. You pushed the boundaries of where we can go while still keeping it at a level of addressing the everyday things like innovation with even our social media apps. So a lot of good information. I mean, I as I'm listening, I'm like, I could listen to this. This is like one of those 3-hour conversations you can have and start debating things back and forth. There was multiple times I'm like, damn it, I'm jumping in. It's too good a conversation to pass up. So I want to thank you guys for that. I know there's a lot of questions out there that people won't have answered. Hayden says, I'll take one of those backpacks off your hands. Mine just crapped out. So there you go. Hayden, you got to that is rule number 1. Backpack brands, get a camera bag or a backpack brand. If you're heading for an ambassadorship, there's only 47,000 bag companies out there.
Yeah.
And it only takes a quick scroll through your Instagram feed to get all of their ads within probably 2 swipes. So
Hayden, send me a message, man. I'm serious. I'll send you one.
There you go, Hayden. Well, Nate, do you do most of your posting on Instagram? What's a website anymore? Do you still keep it up on your website? Speaking of innovation.
Yeah, I do have a website. It's just nateluebbe.com. And then, I post on Instagram, Nate in the Wild, on Twitter, Nate in the Wild, YouTube, Facebook, Nate in the Wild. Maybe close to the point now where if you Google like Nate photography, I should probably be near the top. So hopefully
Awesome.
I'm findable.
Got the SEO working for you. When you meet somebody, Nate, have we fully moved to giving them the Instagram instead of the website? What do you lead with?
I guess that's a good question. I mean, I just kind of hand them my card that has everything. But yeah, Instagram is still like, for now, until Anthology is like fully rolled out, it's probably the best like portfolio aggregator that I have to showcase my work without people having to see all the weird dad jokes that I put out on my Twitter and stuff. So that's still the one that I lead with. Yeah.
Sounds like where I want to be, dad joke city. I drop them all the time. Now you mentioned business cards, so it's like, man, I'm never gonna finish with you guys. I hope you guys cleared out your FNL. This will be it. Business cards, because that's an interesting topic as well. I've seen probably 5 different can't even speak today, technologically advanced forms of business cards. It's like, it feels like everyone's trying to outdo or like the new cool fad. Like, well, I have a titanium business card that if you bounce light off of it, it bounces a hologram signal up on the ceiling, and then you can scan that with your phone and then send it to your email. And it's like, okay, I'd rather just go back to primitive business card. Where are we at with business cards? I haven't used a business card in years. I'm lazy though, so I'm not the best judgment of character on this. So regular old business card, do you use like QR codes or anything?
No, mine are just regular old business cards. I pay for like kind of a nice material, and they all have like printed. I don't think I have any close to me. Otherwise, I would hold them up to the camera here. But they're, I like put photos. I have like 5 different cards with different photos that I love on them. But for me, it's like I take them to events or like when I teach workshops or whatever, and so I can hand them out. And if I hand out like 100 or 200 in a year, they can't all be holographic titanium cards, or I'll be bankrupt. So
Exactly. Well, so I
yeah,
guess it just drives it home that as no matter what kind of technology and innovation is out there, there's always going to be a spot in the market for just good old classic products and tangible items that we've been used to for years. I mean, I don't think prints, what are we going to do with prints? The prints have been around for years, years, decades. I think hopefully they'll be around for decades to come. I think it's just a
yeah,
classic medium that you don't really need to tweak too much.
yeah. I don't see that going anywhere. I think that makes a ton of sense. People are going to continue to have walls.
Yeah, I think that's true. Will, thank you again also for joining us, sponsoring this event through Anthology. Where can we find you, Will? Where can we find out more about for people who want to read up on what you guys are doing over at Anthology?
Yeah, we got a couple of resources. We got the website is anthology-us.com. You can sign up for a free account. We got the whole story going on there as well. If you go to blog.anthology-us, we got a bunch of resources there. You could, my Instagram handles at Will Ciolino, same on Twitter and all the others. So that's where I am. Before I sign off, I did want to kind of share one more little screen here. This was just some of our supporters. Wanted to give them a shout out, helping publish this event and helping us push this along. So thank you to everybody on here and anybody that I'm missing. For sure, you guys are all rock stars.
Awesome. Oh, well, thank you for throwing that up there. Hey, there always is a huge list of people behind every event. So while we're doing it, I'll give you my huge list of people. We got Scott, Danny, Shearer, and Courtney, Stephanie, the rest of the event space team who makes this all possible every day. So it's Monday. We're feeling thankful. So thankful to all the people who put events like this. And of course, all of our viewers. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. We do it for you. Feel free, if there's ever a topic that you guys want to see on here, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know. Drop it in the comment section when you're watching one of our events. If there's anybody you think we should know about, same. Always love a name thrown out at us. So I already told you we're going to get NFTs. We're going to bring, round up the horses on that NFTs conversation, bring that back to you guys once we get something set up. But a huge thank you again to Will and Nate Anthology for bringing us today's presentation.